Alright, and we back on the forecast. Now understand, most of the violence done to us has been in the name of white women, protecting the honor of the pure white woman. But even though they shed our blood in the name of white women, most of the time it's because they're jealous of black people and want to keep us in our position. In a lot of these cases, they know white women be lying, they just use it as an excuse to attack us. And Ida B. Wells broke down the lynch law in the 1800s. Even though they've burnt down our cities and killed countless people under the guise of protecting the pure white woman, in reality, they were just mad black people were becoming successful. But to be honest, we need to learn and incorporate the mindset of protecting our women and children at all costs. That's one thing we can take from them, protecting our community by any means necessary. And believe me, when we start doing that, everything else will fall in line. But too many of us still give white women a pass and let them play both sides of the fence. And that's one of the things that make white women so dangerous. Back in 1919, the Omaha race riot and the lynching of Will Brown was started because of a lie of a white woman. Now, leading up to the riots, tensions were high because black people were moving in and taking jobs. So the newspapers in Omaha constantly ran false stories about black men raping white women. So a corrupt politician, Tom Dennison, who was also one of the leaders in the underground crime ring, planned on instigating a race riot with the former mayor to sabotage the new mayor because they lost the election. The criminal Tom Dennison admitted and bragged about having white boys dress up in blackface and go out and assault white women, just to cause more fear in white citizens. So then one day, a white woman, Agnes Locbeck, claimed she was assaulted by a black man after she was coming home from the movies. She said a black man robbed her and her handicapped boyfriend at gunpoint, and they took her boyfriend's money, watch, and billfold. And then she said they dragged her into a ravine and raped her. And I guess her handicapped boyfriend was just standing there waiting for her to come back. But of course the next day, newspapers like the Omaha Bee ran stories like Black Bees rapes a white woman. So then a mob of about 400 joined the police and started searching for a random black man. So one person told them there was a suspicious Negro living nearby with a white woman. And when the mob went to the house, they found the brother William Brown. Now with no evidence at all, they arrested him. And then they took him to the white woman Agnes Locbeck house so she could identify him. The brother Will Brown said she never made a positive ID, but later she denied it. So they took this brother Will Brown to jail based off this white woman word alone. So then by the next night, a mob anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 gathered at the jail. And they had the building completely surrounded. They attacked any black person who came anywhere near them. So then by 8 o'clock that night, the mob set the courthouse on fire. And then they started looting hardware stores and stores that sold guns, trying to get any weapon they could find. More than 1,000 guns were reported stolen. Then the mob started attacking random black people, dragging them from streetcars or catching them walking down the street, minding their own business, beating them up. They were getting so wild, they started hurting each other. So then around 11 that night, the mayor finally came out. And he tried to calm the mob down, but somebody hit him in the back of the head with a bat. The mob was about to hang him too, but somebody cut him down and took him away. Then the mob broke in and stormed the jail and stripped his brother of all his clothes and dragged him outside. Then the mob castrated this brother Will Brown and started to mutilate his body, taking body parts as souvenirs. And then they hung this brother up from a light pole and shot him over 100 times. Then they cut him down and tied his naked body to a car and then drove him around town for a couple hours, driving him through the black community. And then after they were done dragging him around, they poured oil on his body from the street lamps and set him on fire. And then after they took pictures, they dragged his burnt up body around for a couple more hours. White children were selling pieces of the rope they lynched him with for 10 cents. When the federal troops came in, they set up in the black community to keep them from attacking. And of course, even though it's infamous pictures with them standing around his body smiling, nobody was ever charged. And today they still do the same thing. White women tell the same lies, and they harass and attack us under the guise of protecting white women. In Quincy, Massachusetts, a white woman made up a story about a random black man assaulting and robbing her.
A frightening attack in Quincy. A woman ambushed walking in the park. She was robbed in broad daylight, pulled to the ground, and left bleeding. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Lisa Hughes.
And I'm Liam Martin. And tonight, as Mike LaCrosse tells us, women in that area are on alert.
The victim told police she was attacked from behind while walking along this dirt path right behind the tennis courts next to Quincy High.
11 o'clock in the morning. It's brazen, to say the least.
The attack happened in broad daylight on Russell Park, which is just a block away from busy Quincy Center.
This doesn't happen all the time, so it's scary.
Quincy police say the man walked up behind the 49-year-old woman and threw her to the ground, then took off with her money, sneakers, and jacket. A canine tracked down the victim's jacket and sneakers, but not the suspect. Police found the victim bleeding with cuts.
Eerie to happen in the middle of the day, for sure, you know.
Women heading into a previously scheduled Quincy Police Department self-defense class tonight tell us they're relieved they signed up.
It just makes me glad that I took it.
She shouldn't have to go through that. Nobody should. But we are, more and more. So that's why we're here.
Meanwhile, the violent daytime attack has other women in the area changing their walking routes until the guy is caught.
I probably won't use that path for a week or so.
Cops are describing the suspect as a black man in his early 20s. He was last seen in the area wearing dark clothes. If you have any information, give police a call.
Quincy police just announced a robbery reported at Russell Park last week did not happen, and the woman made up the story. The woman told police that she had been walking in the park when a man attacked her from behind, threw her to the ground, and stole money from her purse. Police say they reviewed surveillance in the area and then re-interviewed the woman who admitted she made up the story. She will be charged with filing a false police report.
Now, the police won't release the name of this 49-year-old white woman, but she says she was walking in the park on a path about 11 o'clock in the morning when a random black man attacked her from behind and threw her on the ground. She said he stole her money from her purse and then ran off with her shoes and jacket, which police dogs later found in the park, but they didn't find no suspect. Now, this woman had cuts on her face and she was bleeding, and she claimed it was a black man in his early 20s. He was bald and clean shaven, and he was wearing a black hoodie and blue jeans and black shoes. Now, a few days later, after the police checked the surveillance video, they questioned her again, and she admitted that she lied and made the whole thing up. Now, this white woman took off her shoes and took off her jacket and placed them in random places in the park, just to say a black man attacked her. The cuts and blood on her face came from brush on a park trail. Now, they are charging her, but they're protecting her and not releasing her name. And the media had no problem talking about the attack, but they didn't want to talk about how she recanted her story. Now, it's no telling how many black men were questioned, harassed, or detained. But no matter what, they'll stay on code to protect white women. And all they have to say is a black man looked at me, and their word is taken as gold. Just look at what happened in Michigan.
Hello, this is Kamiko, and I am in Royal Oak, Michigan. I was going to the CVS over here when this young man is stopped because a Caucasian lady said that he looked at her suspiciously, and he has been pulled over walking to go to eat by 2 police officers for suspicion of being black and looking at the Caucasian woman. They got him surrounded. So I'm not going to leave the brother out here.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. By the way, I'm sorry for wasting you guys' time. Maybe I can get a bill out of you guys. What time do you guys close? 9 o'clock.
He tried to get something to eat.
He explained the situation.
And the lady is over there in her car, in the white car, with her window rolled down. She said the brother looked suspicious, and she called the police on him. And they got him surrounded. So we called for a supervisor of Royal Oak.
You guys might want to be careful there. They're real suspicious around here. Don't look at me too long because the police will come and harass you for looking at me for too long. Just be careful. I need to make that like a warning sign for Royal Oak. Don't stare too long because people.
No, don't be black and stare.
Right.
How old are you?
I'm only 20 years old, man.
20 years old.
She called and said, hey, there's a guy staring at me. I'm threatened. I'm scared. And
Black in America, Royal Oak, Michigan. You look suspicious.
White lady, pretty sure if she would have did the same thing. This wasn't going on right now. He would have let her go. He would have let her go 10 minutes ago.
They pulled up on 20-year-old.
Even though she doesn't even know me, but she's still out here standing with her.
This is the restaurant owner. She is not leaving his side.
So if someone calls about someone, we're not supposed to respond?
No, you are, but not the way you are. Because if you're investigating the crime, and as you pull up and you see, I'm not a threat to her. I'm not even close to her.
How do we know until we find out and talk to her?
Well, this is the thing. When he was pulling up, well, wait, let me finish. While he was pulling up, I'm walking in. I'm right here. So I'm not even close to her. So once you even see that, ma'am, I don't think he's even paying any attention.
I'm going to go over here and get this lady on camera.
Once he asked her, I told him I was parking my car. I'm saying, no, I'm going to go eat. And my food to go. He's talking about, oh, you're detective.
They pulled up on the brother in Royal Oak, Michigan, because the Caucasian lady done called the police on him. After he just walking down the street to meet his girlfriend at a restaurant. This is the restaurant owner. He's free to go. Woohoo! He's free. The lady over there in that car she called, who's sitting over there hiding. This is awful.
You can come back and enjoy your food. Thank you guys so much.
We weren't leaving.
How do we know that until we talk to anybody?
You're right. I understand that. But
are we supposed to have all these facts?
This is the
before
point.
talking to people?
The whole thing is that this lasted so long.
Well, we came from 13 and Woodward because we were called over here for this nonsense.
Nonsense.
It is nonsense. You're right.
A racist lady.
He just says, hey, I'm going into here, but just listen. And you can record this too.
I am.
All you have to do is say, you know what, I'm just parking my car, minding my own business. Okay?
He did several times.
Check's okay. And you know what? He'd be eating right now. He'd have an hors d'oeuvre right now.
He did say
He did say that.
And then he asked for a supervisor because he was being
harassed and threatened.
Okay, we had to respond, right? We had to respond. Right? We were 4 miles away.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
Okay.
Police in Royal Oak apologizing for their actions, rather. This is all after that video we first showed you yesterday of officers stopping a black man after a white woman reported that he looked at her suspiciously. And for the first time, we are hearing the 911 call that started it all.
It's a silver vehicle. It's across the street from me. He's an African-American male. And I don't know what his deal is, but it's really not, it's making me not feel very comfortable at all.
Now, as 7 Action News reporter Simon Shaquette explains, the man and his attorney filed a formal complaint today while the department is releasing new video along with an apology.
We're learning more about allegations of discrimination and racial profiling here in Royal Oak today, specifically a man who says he's a victim and his attorney meeting with police to file a formal complaint.
This young man is stopped because a Caucasian lady said that he looked at her suspiciously.
This recent Facebook video was taken after 20-year-old Devin Myers had police called on him by a white woman who allegedly accused him of looking at her suspiciously. Myers says at the time his request for a supervisor to be called was denied, and he was made to feel like a criminal when all he wanted to do was park his car and get some food at a nearby restaurant.
I've seen it on TV, but I never thought it would happen to me, especially not in an urban area like this.
He has been pulled over walking to go to eat by 2 police officers.
Today, police released new dashcam video along with an apology in part of a statement saying, quote, the officer had no legal right to demand the identification and should have simply advised Mr. Myers why we were there and allowed him to go on his way. Devin is thanking a nearby worker who shot the video and ultimately got police to call in a higher-ranking supervisor. While no arrest was made, Devin says a prior nasty run-in with one of the same officers has left him reluctant to return to Royal Oak.
He didn't want to hear it. He just wanted to go on and say, you know, I'm overpower you. I have my badge. I can do what I want. I don't have to listen. I don't want to listen. He didn't want to hear my voice.
The initial officer and his behavior, how things could have been handled, it was addressed by the chief that things could have and should have been handled differently.
Police are also now saying what took place is unacceptable, and both a responding officer and a supervisor didn't handle things in a manner expected of them. Discipline and additional training are now being carried out. The woman who called police near 4th and Knowles has not been identified. The Royal Oak mayor has issued a statement indicating the city is working every day to combat racial bias.
The chief understands and wants that as well, because it's very concerning not only for myself, but Devin and everyone else who viewed the video as to how he was addressed by the officers.
Now, this 20-year-old brother, Devin Myers, was simply going to a restaurant just to get something to eat when a random white woman called the police on him because she felt uncomfortable. She claimed he came up right behind her as she was getting into her car, and he was looking at her suspiciously. Now, a lot of them do have that fantasy of being raped by the big bad black man, one of the downfalls of the hundreds of years of propaganda. But this white woman's word was all the police needed. The first cop that responded pulled up like, "Show me which nigga it is." And the first cop approached him hostile, asking for identification. They questioned this man for close to an hour because a white woman said she felt uncomfortable. And eventually 4 more cops showed up before they let him go. Now, this brother was just waiting for this woman to pull out of a parking spot, and when she didn't leave, he just parked somewhere else. But the cops said, "We're just doing their job," which is true. Their job is to enforce white supremacy. But the cops said all he had to do was just comply and explain. And when all these witnesses said that's exactly what he did, all this cop could say is, "We have to respond, right?" Now, they never identified any of these cops. And of course, they didn't identify this white woman. And they aren't going to charge her or punish her at all. Because to be honest with you, they want them to call the police on us. For them, that is, if you see something, say something. But of course, they stay on code with this white woman and protect her, even though this brother would have been lynched 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. But we can learn from that. We have to stay on code and learn how to protect our own. We have to handle our issues in-house. We can't let outsiders come in and solve our issues. No matter what happens, they stay on code. They don't care what they do. And all they know is it's not racially motivated. And if it's cases like with the Dayton shooter, Connor Betts, then it's about mental illness and he's a lone wolf. But it's still not about race.
The individual had a history of obsession with violent ideations to include mass shootings and had expressed a desire to commit a mass shooting.
Dayton police and now the FBI are still discovering new and disturbing information about 24-year-old Connor Betts.
We have uncovered evidence throughout the course of our investigation that the shooter was exploring violent ideologies.
And that's about all investigators would say, other than they found no evidence the attack was racially motivated.
What, if any, ideology influenced the attacker to conduct this attack? Who, if anyone, helped him?
What does seem clear is the attack took planning. Betts arrived on a busy Dayton strip wearing a mask and body armor, carrying an AR-15 style rifle. Police shot and killed him within 30 seconds, but not before he shot and killed 9 people, including his own sister. Meanwhile, we're getting new insights into his state of mind.
He did a monstrous thing, but that doesn't make him a monster.
Ex-girlfriend Adelia Johnson says Betts showed her a video of a mass shooting on their first date. In high school, he reportedly had a list of men he wanted to kill and women he wanted to rape. Back then, he complained about voices in his head and told friends he was afraid of himself. Even as recently as April, Betts called Johnson.
It's easy to call them red flags because I'm not in it and I have perspective.
First, let's focus on the victims here. What do we know about the people that were gunned down last night?
Well, we are still putting all of that together. It was a group that included the shooter's sister. That was a new revelation just a short while ago. So we're looking into family dynamics and family issues as to whether that played any role. The others are a very cross section of Dayton. A majority of the victims were African American last night, but there were white victims as well. And it was a group that just locally I would have thought would be a typical Oregon district crowd on the sidewalk on a Saturday night.
Now, of course, the police don't know anything but he's mentally ill. And even though they don't know his motives, they know it wasn't racially motivated. Now, some people say this white boy killed his sister because he found out she was dating a black man. They found his sister in a car with a man who they think is her boyfriend. And more than likely, it was a black man who was killed in the car with her. Now, the police won't confirm it because that would confirm it's about race. But after he killed them, then he killed 7 more people. And they'll tell you about some of the victims, and they seem to be highlighting the white ones. But what they won't tell you is 5 out of the other 7 people he killed were black people. But they have to protect the system of white supremacy, so they have to deny it's about race. If Dylan Roof ain't come out and say, I targeted black people, they would probably say that's not about race either. But they protect their own by any means necessary. And as far as that goes, we can learn some lessons from them about protecting our own. They stay on code and they take each other's word as gold when it comes to us. We need to stay on code and take each other's word as gold when it comes to the system of white supremacy. At the end of the day, we are all we got. And if we don't do what we have to do to get out of this situation, then we're still going to be here 100 years from now.
So why don't you call me a nigger again? Why don't you call me a nigger again?
You gonna insult me?
No, go ahead.
Let me tell you something.
Call me a nigger again.
I don't have to call you one. Get away from me. I call security and they're on surveillance
Call
with you.
me a nigger
Get
again.
away from me!
Call me a nigger again.
Nigger!
Okay.
You follow me up there, call the cops.
Yep, please call him.
Yeah, because I did bang into you. Stop following me.
I'm leaving the store, baby.
Good, leave. Go back to Harlem.
I'm not in Harlem. I'm not even from Harlem.
Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. Expect this around all these kids. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is horrible. She said she told me to go back to where I came from. Wow, add sesame, please. This is weird. This is weird. Wow. Don't take no pictures of me. Don't take no pictures of me. Don't take no pictures of me. Don't touch me again. Get your fucking phone away from me. She touched me, and it's on video. She got babies crying. It's terrible. Who are you to tell me to go back where I came from?
EMTs here at NYU Langone are responsible for saving lives. It's a part of their duties. But Pix 11 has learned colleagues of Kathy Albano, known as Rena on social media, are concerned she might be doing her job with an offensive mindset. One of them is speaking out. We are concealing her identity, but when she saw the post on Albano's Instagram page,
I feel ashamed that these are people I work alongside, and I feel afraid.
The EMT first thanked everyone for backup at a stabbing scene in Brooklyn last week. But when asked what happened, the response said, just the animals stabbing each other.
Very upset. EMS is a frustrating job. I totally get that. There's no excuse around that.
The colleague also pointed out this post from Facebook. Albano sounding off on the mass shooting in Brownsville. It said, last night all hell broke out in Brownsville with over 11 people shot. They were all screaming for the police. Why are you yelling for the police? The police are too busy trying to dry out their uniforms from the water bucket attack. Stop calling the police when you are in danger. Call a crackhead instead.
People were concerned that work with her. They don't even want to work with her. A racist is a racist, and they got to go.
Some of Albano's colleagues reached out to community advocate Tony Herbert and shared the post with him.
How can we entrust any confidence in this individual going out there and providing these type of services to keep us alive when, in fact, we don't even know that they would do that because of their racist overtone? So they need to fire her.
Redmond's Kitchen and Bar near downtown Muskegon just opened for business this summer when people started looking into the man behind the name and started digging up posts on Facebook with what appears to be a number of racist jokes.
First one was the image of the lady giving the baby Hennessy and Newports and watermelon. I seen a Pac-Man image of the Ku Klux Klan chasing blacks with watermelons and drinks of that nature.
Ebony Davis is a motivational speaker in Muskegon who wanted to bring attention to the posts made by Gary Ferguson. She says she saw 7 that, in her opinion, stand out as derogatory or racist, including this one, which was posted years ago after the Ferguson riots, and also this one reading, "Keep calm and white power."
And so when I saw it, I got enraged. I'm not gonna lie, I was mad because I come from a blended family. I have a lot of mixed kids in my family, so I'm like, this is unacceptable, especially for a business owner that says you're for the betterment of Muskegon.
Redmond was described as part owner at Redmond's Kitchen and an employee at Top Shelf until today. Jim Knoll, who owns both restaurants, tells Fox 17 Redmond has been terminated, adding, "Redmond doesn't represent Top Shelf or Redmond's Kitchen and Bar views. We apologize to everyone who was offended. It is unfortunate that this has happened, but we have severed ties with Mr. Redmond." When Davis learned Redmond no longer works there,
that right there, that statement and his actions kind of showed that he gets it.
Earlier today, Redmond took to Facebook to apologize, writing in part, "I am sincerely sorry for the way it has made so many people in the community I care about feel. I am ashamed and not proud of my past actions and highly care about how everybody in the community feels."
I feel like the plea deal is injustice to the children. The children deserve so much more.
Annette Cox is the neighbor who reported Kenneth and Kelly Fry when she saw their 2 young adopted children locked out of the house crying on a freezing January day back in 2018.
I think if I wouldn't have called that day, what would have been like 3 months later, like just because they were so malnourished, you know, they were being starved to death.
Court documents say the 8 and 9-year-old adopted from Ghana shared a room that was lined in plastic and had alarms on the doors. The bare room contained a plastic bucket that was used as a toilet. The 2 children told authorities they were required to spend most of the day in their room and had to eat oatmeal for every meal.
They could have died in that room, and who would have known?
Neighbors are outraged, including Dawn Fry, who is not related to the couple.
It makes me very sick to my stomach. That what kind of service is that to these children?
This week, the Frys each pleaded guilty to 2 counts of child endangerment. Prosecutors say they took responsibility and have no prior criminal records, so each count comes with a possibility of 2 years in prison. But neighbors are disgusted.
It's just not fair to the children. It feels like the children don't have a voice in the justice system.
The Frys' Osceola home is now vacant. Neighbors tell KCCI they still live in town with their 5 biological children.
I don't think they deserve to have any of their children, because I feel those children need help now.
Whistleblower Annette Cox says she would do it all over again. Many call her a hero. She doesn't agree.
Not at all. I just done the right thing for them.
A racist video shows Antelope Valley students painting a boy's face black and using racial slurs. And tonight, some of those kids are expressing regret, and community leaders are calling for a change in how and what we teach our kids. Now, that video has shocked and outraged the community.
Certainly has, and now civil rights leaders and school officials are demanding change. A news conference was held today to address that video. And
CBSN Los Angeles anchor Jasmine Veal is live in the newsroom with more. Jasmine.
Jeff, so this group not only talked about how hurtful that video was, but that it should be a wake-up call on how much more needs to be done to keep this from happening again.
A white
This video began surfacing online over the weekend. It was first posted to Snapchat and later shared on Twitter. It shows a student getting his face painted in what looks like blackface, as other students, reportedly from Quartz Hill High School, use racial slurs like the N-word in the background.
And in my personal opinion, I feel like rather than bashing these kids and calling them racist, we need to go ahead and say, what can we do better and how can we improve?
Angelique Zambrano, a student at Quartz Hill High, stood with community members and civil rights leaders outside the Antelope Valley School District offices today calling for change. She says one of her friends was there when the video was recorded and has since apologized for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but has gotten death threats.
But we can't kill hate with hate. Absolutely. We need to realize that this isn't just a problem with these kids, but it's a problem in how they're being raised and what they're being taught.
Board of Trustees member Victoria Ruffin brought up the picture of 4 elementary school teachers in Palmdale posing with a noose.
These blackface issues, these noose issues are rooted in a higher level of ignorance by allowing these behaviors to live in our districts and within our communities.
Parents like Jesse Smith spoke out as well.
Seeing the video, it hurt. It caused my daughter to hurt, pain, but it also served as a teachable moment.
All of them calling on the community to step up.
We can't let it happen, you all.
We can't.
We cannot let it happen. Right.
And now this, the Antelope Valley Union High School District released a statement yesterday that reads in part that we were recently made aware of a social media video showing a group of teens exhibiting deeply offensive and inexcusable racist behavior. This runs counter to the district's core values. We are working on identifying those in the video while including our law enforcement partners and will take action as deemed appropriate. Well, I checked and no word yet from the district today on any kind of disciplinary action. The Sheriff's Department also told me they are still investigating. Pat and Jeff, Quartz Hill High School has said that when summer school begins next week, counselors will be visiting each and every class to talk about tolerance.
I feel like they would not transport children from La Jolla on a bus like that.
That's what some parents are saying after their children were taken to a summer camp in a Sheriff's Department transport bus. It happened with a police community relations summer camp held by Star Pal. 10 News reporter Travis Rice spoke to the camp's director about why this bus was their only option.
It just doesn't look right.
It's a bus ride full of bad optics, says this mom.
My kid is in a Joe bus. What does it look like when she gets off the bus in Del Mar and there's a bunch of blacks and Mexican kids? Driving by, I would be like, whoa. What did they do?
That's one of the reasons why Kimberly Steele is beside herself that her 8-year-old daughter and dozens of other kids were transported to a summer camp event in this Sheriff's Department inmate transport bus.
She said she had fun at the camp. She said she was tired, and she mentioned herself that the bus was small and it had cages.
Steele says she feels the kids were being stigmatized and that the parents didn't know the free summer camp transportation was going to be this.
I didn't give consent. They never asked us, was it okay to put our children on a bus like that?
What do you say to the person that says, hey, this is a free bus ride, they're trying to save some money?
Thanks but no thanks, pretty much. Thanks but no thanks. If it comes down to a child riding a prison bus to save money, it's not worth it.
We don't host programs in La Jolla or near Mesa. We do it in communities where there's services that are needed, and we want to be using the funding that we get to provide opportunities for kids who wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise.
Program Director Claire LeBeau says the free buses from the Sheriff's Department have been used for years and it's never been an issue before, but they are willing to make this as right as their budget will allow.
If that's not working, then it is something that needs to be evaluated, but quite frankly, the funding would have to be a discussion as well, because we do so much with so little money.
You might step out the vehicle.
Why do I need to step?
I'm lawfully telling you to step out the vehicle.
What have I done?
I'm lawfully telling you to step out the vehicle so I can talk to you, okay? Since you don't want to roll down your window, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and legally step out the vehicle so I can talk to you.
Do I have to roll down my
I'm
window?
giving you a lawful order to step out the vehicle, okay? Don't worry about the window. I need you to step out the vehicle.
Is there a reason I need to step out the
I'm
vehicle?
giving you a lawful order now to step out the vehicle, okay? If you fail to comply, you will be arrested. Step out of the vehicle so I can talk to you.
Have I? Why am I going to be arrested?
7 Prince Frederick. Okay, fine. You don't want to step out?
It's not that I don't want to step out. It's that I don't have to step out.
7 Prince Frederick.
Can I get your name, sir?
What was that?
Can I get your name, sir?
Hold on 1 second, okay?
Okay.
Since you don't want to comply to my orders.
But don't you have to tell me your name?
Okay, look, I'm giving you a lawful order to step out of the vehicle, okay? That is your last time.
Can you get a supervisor up here, sir?
For failure to comply with a lawful order.
Can you get somebody up here that's higher than you, sir? Okay. Please.
Sir, step out the vehicle.
Can I get your name and
Sir, when you're on my way, drivers being non-compliant, not listening to the lawful order. Step out of the vehicle now.
Is there a reason I have to step out of the vehicle, sir?
I'm giving you a lawful order, okay, sir?
Why did you pull me over, sir?
Step out of
You never told me. Why did you pull me over, sir?
Well, you won't allow me to talk to you, okay?
I asked you.
Sir, I'm telling you, step out.
Why did you pull me over, sir? Don't worry about it.
Just stay right there, okay?
I'm going to stay right here, sir.
Are you going to step out of the vehicle, yes or no?
No, sir.
No?
Can I get your name, sir?
Listen now, I'm telling you lawfully step out the vehicle.
You have not given me your name. You have not told me why you pulled me over. You have not given me a reason to step out this vehicle.
Okay, now I'm telling you to step out the vehicle lawfully.
Lawfully.
Are you going to step out?
No, sir. Can you get somebody up here higher than you?
Turn your engine off.
I will turn my engine off. Can you get somebody up here higher than you, sir? Can you do that for me?
Excuse me?
Can you get somebody up here that's a higher rank than you, sir? Can we get somebody above you?
Yeah, you can record all you want, okay? Because it's recording you
What have I done?
Recording me telling you legally to step out the vehicle.
For
and you're
what,
not
sir?
compliant.
For what?
Like I said, I'm not going to talk to you through a crack.
I'm sorry.
Okay? So now you're saying I'm going to jail for failure to comply with a lawful order.
If I've broken the law, take me to jail, sir.
You have.
Okay, when we get somebody up here higher,
In Maryland, I can't tell you to step out the vehicle.
we will find out, sir.
Well, do you have your mind having your hands visible where I can see them?
My hands.
Hey, record all you want.
Oh, I am, sir.
Okay. My name is Trooper Lewis with the Maryland State Police.
Thank you. Listen, I didn't start recording until you started demanding stuff without telling me a name, telling me why you pulled me over.
Well, you're trying to have me talk to you through a smaller crack.
Do I have to open my window more than this, sir? Is that a law?
I'm going to talk to you and stop yelling, yes, okay? But like I say, hey, we're beyond that, okay? I've told you multiple times to legally step out of the vehicle.
To legally? You haven't given me a legal reason why I need to step out.
Step out of the vehicle so I can talk to you, okay?
Sir, are we not talking, sir?
No, we're not.
Oh, my apologies.
We need to step up to be a possible extraction from vehicle.
Extraction from vehicle?
All right, so you're not going to come out of the vehicle?
Sir, give me a
I'm
reason.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, and the reason why I did pull you over is for your window tint. I can't see in your vehicle, okay? For the safety reason, I want to talk to you, be able to identify you who you are.
You haven't even asked me for an ID. What do you mean you're trying to identify me?
Yeah, you still have yet to roll down the window and explain to you why.
Sir, give me the law that says I have to roll down my window.
You better step out.
I'm not going to step out, sir. I'm not going to step out, sir. Somebody else is pulling up, sir. We're going to see what he has to say.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and break your window down. Step out of the car.
Sir, there's a cop right here. Sir, there's another cop pulling up. Can we wait?
Step out of the car, okay?
Sir,
I'm legally telling you to step out of the car.
both of my hands are right here.
Well, now new at 6, a Euclid police officer is facing charges, including assault in the violent arrest of a man that was caught on camera almost 2 years ago. Patrolman Michael Amiot has been placed on administrative duties during this investigation. Amani Abraham is here now with what we're learning tonight. Hi, Amani.
Hi, Sarah. Amiot is charged with 2 counts of assault and interfering with civil rights in the arrest of 25-year-old Richard Hubbard III. And the struggle between the two caught on camera. In the video, Richard Hubbard was repeatedly punched after a traffic stop back in August of 2017. Police said Hubbard ignored commands to get out of the car and face away. The video shows Patrolman Michael Amiot taking Hubbard to the ground and punching him multiple times. Initially, Amiot was suspended and then fired after Euclid Mayor Kristen Gale said her office had received, quote, further complaints regarding Amiot's professional conduct and found that he had violated additional department rules. But the officer later got his job back when an arbitrator ruled that he should be rehired nearly a year after he was terminated. Euclid police say Amiot has now been placed on administrative duties in light of the new charges. The Fraternal Order of Police released a statement saying they support the officer, and they said, quote, Amiot was attempting to effect a lawful arrest, and the suspect resisted. Officer Amiot, who was injured in the encounter, took the measures that he reasonably believed to be necessary to effect the arrest and protect himself from further harm.
Today marks 1 month since Sadie Roberts-Joseph was killed. The murder of the Baton Rouge icon shocked the community and left many people scratching their heads.
Over the weekend, vandals hit the museum that she loved so much. Chris Nakamoto spoke to the person who discovered it and has more on what is being done to catch those who are responsible. Chris.
Sylvia, Michael, the people who discovered it were visiting the museum. They called police to report the damage they discovered. Damage they called disrespectful to a woman who gave so much to this community. Broken benches, bricks scattered about, a bell flipped upside down, and the remnants of what used to be a fountain with crystals mangled. Over the weekend, vandals damaged the Odell S. Williams Museum of African American History.
I just wanted to make sure I did my part to call somebody.
Kevin Hayes discovered the damage and was in disbelief at what he saw.
It's a historic black museum, and a lot of kids did find time in the community and found ways to not do harmful things by coming into this place, and just to see it vandalized is heartbreaking.
That's not all. Someone trampled through the garden Sadie Roberts-Joseph kept in pristine condition, knocking down plants and leaving tiki torches thrown about. Hayes fondly recalls his memories of Miss Sadie, a beloved Baton Rouge icon who took pride educating the community about African American history. Sadie Roberts Joseph was killed and found in the trunk of her car days before Hurricane Barry began bearing down on us. Her murder touched off candlelight vigils and a major turnout from the community in support of the work she was doing.
It needs to stop, and we need to come together as a community and protect this place, no matter what race or color or creed you are. We just need to stand together for somebody that was doing something right.
For Hayes, seeing the damage was devastating. He's been coming to the museum since he was a kid. Tonight, he says the museum needs to be preserved, and the community needs to keep a close eye on it to protect it from others who may not have the best intentions.
We need to stick together and try to maintain this place.
Baton Rouge police tell us they are investigating. Roberts Joseph's son told WBRZ today he is aware of the vandalism and called it disrespectful and disappointing, saying the museum has been there for the community since its inception almost 2 decades ago.
So what does the government understand that it's not investigating? What reports have been suppressed around the rise of white supremacy, domestic terrorism?
So I appreciated Director Ray's statements that white supremacy presents a persistent threat in the United States. But unfortunately, their policies have actually masked how they use their domestic terrorism resources to make it harder for the Congress to understand how many of those resources are going toward white supremacist violence. Senator Durbin, back in 2017, introduced a bill, the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, that would have required the FBI to document how many incidents and fatalities were a result of each category of domestic terrorism in the domestic terrorism program, and then how many investigations and prosecutions occurred in each category, which I believe would have shown disproportionate investigations against groups that were not nearly as violent as white supremacists. Instead of producing that data, what the FBI did was change the way they collect the data. So they grouped anarchists with anti-government militias under a category of anti-government. They grouped what had been a white supremacist category with what they had previously called black identity extremists, so that it would be harder to discern whether appropriate resources are going to where there are actually violent acts attributable to these groups. So this is a problem that's long-standing. The Justice Department, as a matter of policy and practice, has deprioritized the investigation of white supremacists. And we talk about a rise in white supremacist violence. But the truth is, we don't know whether there's a rise because nobody actually accounts for this violence. The federal government today doesn't know how many white supremacists kill people each year. And they haven't been keeping these records, even as counterterrorism became its #1 priority. So what they need to do is change these policies. Recently, some former and current Justice Department officials have been arguing that they need new laws, that there aren't sufficient laws. Well, I worked these cases in the 1990s, and nobody suggested we didn't have enough law. In fact, there are plenty of laws, and we wrote a report at the Brennan Center last year, Wrong Priorities on Fighting Terrorism, to show the scope of the laws, not just 52 terrorism laws that apply to domestic terrorism, but 5 federal hate crime statutes addressing the kind of crimes that white supremacists often commit, organized crime statutes that would prevent the organized groups that act violently and persist because their members can replace one another, and also other conspiracy statutes. So there are plenty of laws. It's a matter of policy. And as a matter of policy, the Justice Department takes hate crimes and defers them to state and local prosecution. And only 12% of police departments across the country even report hate crimes. So we know that the state and locals aren't responding to this appropriately, yet the federal government just defers to them.
I wished I could get rid of. You know what I mean? This has been a hobby. If you just had been here to listen to all this and see some of it, then you would have known just what it was. We lost everything.
Lost everything.
You own the land?
Yeah, we own our land, all of them.
And no one ever paid you any money for this land?
No.
You just lost it?
Took it.
What do you say to children today? Children like this boy, like your great-grandson, and people who didn't grow up when you grew up, and people who didn't go through what you went through, people who would say, this couldn't have happened in this country. Come on.
I would tell them like this. I said, don't ever stay in a place that white folks can surround it. Don't never stay in a place that white folks can surround it. Because if anything happens some ways else, they'll run you out from your home, just like they did us.